Hey, what's going on, everybody? Another weekly watch list here. If you guys are new to the channel, we do Forex weekly watch list every week where I go over my top 6 to 10 setups that I'm looking at that I believe have the highest probability going into the week. And so let's just jump right in. First one, we have GBP CAD on the 6-hour time frame. You can see it kind of looks a little crazy right here, but I'll explain two different setups that I'm looking at. One that I'm forecasting and one that I'm looking at taking early on in the week. So you guys can see where we're at right here on the 6-hour time frame. We're moving within these lower highs and lower lows. We had pushed back up and price had failed to break this current market structure. As you can see, we were moving in this downtrend. Like I said, lower lows, lower highs, etc. Moving down, we had failed to break this previous market structure, which was this level right here. And so now if we zoom in, or let's go to the 3-hour time frame, you can see we had broken out of this smaller uptrend. We had this smaller uptrend. We're moving within lower or higher highs and higher lows, and we had broken this market structure right here. And what do we have when we zoom in? I mean, a pretty textbook break of trend and impulse and correction. So I'm going to be looking at taking shorts going into the week on this pair right here. I'll zoom into the 1 hour so you guys can see this. Pretty textbook what we want to see when we're looking for short positions in terms of market structure principles and understanding the market structure stages, which is impulses and corrections. So like I said, break a market structure here if you want to play it that way, but clear impulse and correction. And so all we're doing here is forecasting the next bearish impulse to the downside. And so I want to show you guys what I'm targeting, because you could say, why wouldn't you target this key level down here? If you're looking at taking short positions, why wouldn't you be targeting all the way at the bottom? Let that refresh. So why wouldn't you be targeting here? Well, I could see this being a potential scenario where we do get potential long positions later on in the week, or possibly even next week if we do a little bit of sideways chop. But this is looking to me like it's a possible inverse head and shoulders. You guys can see this right here before a potential move higher. So I'd be looking at a shorter take profit. Let's see what the RR would be here. About 2.42. So looking at a short-term short position, and then what I would be looking at in terms of a long position. I'd be looking at, so when I move that, you can see it be much more clear in the sense of this potential inverse head and shoulders that could form here. So I'd be looking at potential longs if we get some sort of channel like this. Maybe we get some double bottom down here. Maybe we get some smaller inverse head and shoulders down here. I'd be looking at some sort of bullish indication that we could be moving higher from here. So I am looking at shorts early on in the week for a shorter take profit, and then I would ultimately be looking at long positions up until, let's see, probably this high right here. This is what I'd be looking at in terms of a second trade. So this is a really high probability trade I'm looking at going into week for two different positions. First, looking at short positions, and then second, I'd be looking to take long positions if we get something clear. If we have a clear impulse down and we just continue down, then it'd be a different story. But if we can create some higher low here, to where this would be our first higher low, this base, before moving up, that's something I'd be interested in. So this is the level I'm watching. It could take place, a little bit lower down here, a little bit higher up here, but ultimately that's what I'm looking for. But first off, we're looking at shorts on this, and I think this is a pretty textbook setup when you look at this on the 1 hour time frame. Like I said, clear break of trend here, clear impulse, bearish correction, and I'm looking for the next impulse down. So probably be something like this. I might have an order going into the week on Sunday. Stop loss somewhere over here. You could do it above this high, but this wick might be different depending on what broker you have. But stop loss somewhere above this high, and then I'd be targeting somewhere along this level over here to match this right shoulder level. So look at definitely looking at a high probability setup here going into the week on GBP CAD. But let's keep it moving here. Next pair we have Great British Pound, Swiss franc. So I'll zoom out here to the daily so you can see where we're at here. So we have this really strong key level that's really been a hassle for the bulls. You can see over here we had this really long uptrend and then just smacked back down. And what happened? The bulls tried to push back up again, and we got smacked back down. So we have this double top key level here, or this double top, and then we also have a smaller double top within this larger key level. So definitely showing a lot of rejection here, a lot of bearish pressure here. Bulls are not able to push through this level. So that's showing me that bulls are losing steam here. And another indication, so when we zoom into the 4 hour time frame, like I said, we have this double top level here, and same thing as the last pair. We had this uptrend, and then we had a break of this trend line. And we had this smaller correction here if we zoomed into the 1 hour. So we had this impulse correction, and all I'm doing here is forecasting another correction to form, because we don't want to be entering on these impulses unless we've got a breakout. If we got an entry somewhere up here, we want to be in that impulse. You see what I'm saying? But when we're right here and we're looking at this over the weekend, I don't want to just be entering on any impulse here. That's not what I'm looking to do. So I'd be waiting for some sort of bearish correction to form here before looking at possibly the next impulse move down. And similar trade to the last one, I'd probably be something like this is what I'd be looking for. This is kind of the area I'd be targeting, somewhere down here, 2.5R. You could target this key level here, but keep in mind that on the daily, when I zoom out, we do have this uptrend line here that could cause some problems. You can see this uptrend. We had a strong rejection here. So I'd be looking to take profits somewhere around this uptrend line here on the daily uptrend line. So like I said, just waiting for some sort of bearish correction here. After impulses, we know that corrections likely are to form. So that's what I'd be waiting for. And of course, if price just opened up on Sunday and continued to move down, we might not get an entry and we'll have to move on. But if I'm forecasting and I want to look for a good entry in a good position, this is something I'd be looking for. We have higher time frame confluence. On the lower time frames, we have a break of trend. We have a bearish impulse, and now we're just waiting for this part to take place. And it could take place in a number of different fashions, but ultimately that's the idea of what I'm looking for here. So let's go to the next pair. We have Euro NZD. I am on, let me zoom out real quick. I'll go to the 6 hour so you guys can see this better. So you guys can see we had this smaller uptrend that was forming here. We had this impulse, correction, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. And you can see the bulls just kind of stopped pushing up high. You can see after these impulses, corrections, we had strong pushes up. And you can see when we come here, we kind of have this, it's a higher low. We're still in an uptrend and not much favor after this. Another higher low, but we didn't get much farther after that. And so we're kind of moving within this sideways correction now. We're not moving impulsively to where we would continue this trend. We're moving sideways, which shows the bulls are losing steam here. And you can see when I zoom in, I'll go to the 4 hour time frame. Let me delete this. You can see when we zoom in, we had broken out of this this corrective structure here, and we've actually broken market structure. So we had this higher low over here, higher low, and we broke this higher low right here, which shows a break of market trend. And so we also had a break of this pattern as well, a break of this trend line. So multiple things that are showing me that the bears could be gaining favor here going into the week on Euro NZD. All I'm doing is waiting for a correction to form. And so same thing I was said on the last one. We don't want to just be entering on these impulses unless we got some sort of breakout entry here, which I did not. So I don't want to just be entering in no man's land over here. I want to be waiting for some sort of correction to form to look for short positions. And they don't always look as clean as that. Obviously, you'd say, okay, how is that clean? But let me go ahead and take this off real quick. So you can see we had this impulse, and I'll actually go down to the 1 hour, and we could possibly be forming a bearish correction right here. They don't always, sit like this and go perfectly like a bearish correction. They're not always going to show up like that. So they could be much shorter corrections. They don't have to be as long as I just drew out the first one. It could be a correction right here, and then we end up just breaking down. And that's okay. I would like to see something a little more clear to get a clearer entry. That's something I'd be looking at doing, or looking at getting into trades like that. So ultimately, I want to be a little bit patient on this. If we do just end up moving down from here, like right on Sunday or Monday morning, and I don't get in a trade, it's all good, no worries. But I want to make sure I'm taking high probability trades and high probability setups. So I've identified on the higher time frames that we're potentially looking bearish here. All I'm waiting for is a lower time frame, like the 1 hour, a lower time frame bearish correction to form. Sorry about that. Get that out of there. So like I said, all I'm looking for is something like this. Some sort of bearish correction to look at potential short positions to the downside. Let's head to the next pair. So next we have Euro Australian dollar. And so I'll go here to the daily so you can see where we're at. On the daily time frame, we were in this large triangle pattern right here. You can see we were just moving within, kind of moving very sideways up in this area right here. A lot of sideways chop, and now it seems like we're finally, our price is finally picking a side, if you will. So we had this rejection here. I'll actually go back here. So we had this higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, and now we failed to create a higher high right here. Price had failed to push higher, and what happened? We created our first lower low. We had broken this market structure, and now we have a lower high, lower low, lower high. So market structure changed right there. You guys have to be able to see these kind of things to see what, because this might to the average person say, okay, this looks all super choppy and super ugly. Like I don't know what's going on right here. How can I tell what's going on? We're just moving sideways. But if you look at market structure principles, higher low or higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. We failed to create a higher high and instead created a lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. So you can see when I pull this off to the side, you can see how market structure has changed. We had these higher lows, and what happened next? We broke market structure and then created a lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. So those are just basic market structure principles that can help you to identify what's happening within price action. So now that I've understood that, I understand that we have broken out now of this large triangle pattern. We've broken out. We were moving within these, respecting the boundaries. We had broken out of that. So that's a sign that we could potentially be looking bearish. So I'll go down here to the 4-hour. Same thing. We had broken this previous lower low, and now we're just moving down now. Now we're kind of in no man's land. We're kind of floating down here. So now what I'd be doing is same thing as the other pairs, looking for some sort of lower time frame correction, something like this. And it's like I said, it's not always going to play out that clean. We're not always going to get those perfect entries, but if I go down here to the 1-hour, I want to see some sort of correction to where I can identify a pattern and actually get into a trade. So I'd want to see something of the sort, something to where I can identify a clear bearish pattern. That would give me the highest probability trade in my opinion, rather than, obviously I know you can say, okay, well, it's bearish, you think it's bearish, you have these ideas, everything's looking bearish, why wouldn't you just get into short positions? Because I'd rather wait for confirmation. I don't want to just be entering over here in this little, no man's land. I'd rather wait for something more clear, more concise to get the best RR type trade. Because if I can get something like this, I can get a clear entry. I have clear entry rules. I have clear stop loss rules. I already understand my take profit. Then that's a 5R trade right there. Because if I've waited and I've been patient, and you can see it would be something like this, we could identify that. That's something where I could get a good RR trade. I know where my stop loss is. I might even have it a little bit higher. That to me is a much more clean trade rather than just trying to take a trade within this little chop right here. So I hope that makes sense why I'm waiting and what I'm looking for. This is our impulse here. After impulses, we typically see corrections before continuing down. In this case, we're in a downtrend. So same thing. It's very similar to the last few pairs I've been over, but same thing, just being patient, waiting for the next correction form. So we'll go to the next one. I won't spend too much time on this one because it is similar in the fact of kind of what we're looking at and what we're waiting for. But we're on CAD Chef here, so I'll go down to the daily time frame. So you guys can see we had rejected this downtrend line multiple times. Really strong rejection here. We had a strong rejection over here, which happened a few weeks ago, and we had another rejection here, which formed a double top. So I'll go down here to the 4-hour time frame. You guys can see we have a higher time frame trend line rejection. We have this double top level right here, and now we have a really strong impulse move down to the downside. So you can see we were moving up, moving up, moving up, sideways. Now we have a breakdown, and now we're moving to the downside. And this is very strong bearish momentum here. So typically after moves like this, we see corrections. Similar to this, we had a strong impulse down. What happened? We formed a bearish correction before continuing down. This was our bearish correction right here. That's something similar to what we're looking for over here. Very similar to this. So I hope that makes sense. You guys can see exactly what I'm looking for. It's very similar to what happened over here. So that's all I'm waiting for. Won't spend too much time on this because it's similar to, I've already explained the concept and the idea of why I'm doing that. I don't want to just be entering here because typically price will pull back and form these corrections. So I'd be waiting for some sort of bearish correction to form here on the 4-hour or the 1-hour time frame. So go down here to the next one. We have DXY. And I wanted to go over this because last week we had a lot of movement on the US dollar pairs. So I'll go down here to the daily time frame, and you guys can see when I zoom out, you guys can see kind of what I'm getting at here. We have this large W type pattern. You guys can see this W type pattern, which is a bullish pattern. This is otherwise known as a double bottom, W pattern, however you want to call it. But we have this W pattern that's formed, which is typically a bullish pattern. And you could argue that this is a bearish impulse in a correction. And I will be monitoring this because this is something that could happen. I don't always speak in the sense of I know things will happen. I speak in, probabilities or things could happen based on, what price is telling me. But ultimately price rules all. So I'm going to wait to see what price shows me. But if we get something like this, then I know that we could possibly be moving to the downside. But as of right now, we're just moving within this channel and we're continuing the grind up. you guys can see, like I said, I'm on, let me see what time frame I'm on. I'm on the daily time frame. So you guys can see what's been happening. We've had higher high, higher low, higher high, and all this looks like is a higher low to me until price invalidates that. That's what this is looking at. So I know we had bearish, or excuse me, bullish forecast going into last week for US dollar. We did have a pretty mean fake out and we had ended up moving down. But in my opinion, nothing has been invalidated in terms of DXY and US dollar being bullish. You guys can see when I zoom out here, if we take this trend right here, because this leg was, this was similar. This is that leg for that impulse. This was this leg. So when we take this leg right here and we're looking at this, you guys can see higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high. Technically, this could still be a higher low because we haven't broken this previous market structural level. If we do break this level, then that's going to be very worrisome in the sense of looking at long positions, because that means we had just broken market structure. And this is also coincides with this channel right here, this uptrend channel that I've drawn right here. So if we do break this level here, that's going to give me major indications that price action could be flipping in the sense of the trend, and we could be ready for a move to the downside. But so this is the key level that I'm watching in the sense of, where will I change my bias? When will price show me that, hey, your bullish bias is incorrect? Here's what we're actually doing. This is the level that would invalidate this bullish scenario for me, because I'm still bullish on US dollar right now, in the sense of going into next week short term, because price action has not shown me otherwise. Like I said, we're continually moving into higher highs and higher lows, and nothing has been invalidated yet. This is the invalidation level based on market structure principles if we break this previous higher low right here. So all I'm doing is I'm going to be patient. I'm assuming that we'll probably get some sort of chop, maybe to the sideways, before continuing to the upside. If we do continue to move down, we could technically still do something like this, like I just drawn. We could still technically move down, which could take about a week or so of bearishness on the US dollar. So even something like this would not deteriorate this bullish biasness on the higher timeframes for DXY, because we haven't broken this higher low yet that was formed over here. So I still do think that US dollar on the higher timeframes is bullish. Like I said, we could continue to move down sideways or a little bit lower going into this week. So as much as I'm saying, I'm still bullish on US dollar pairs, I'm just forecasting that this is a possibility, and this would still not invalidate bullish market structure until this level is broken. So take that into consideration when going into the week. Overall, I'm still bullish on US dollar until we get a break of this level. If we do, that's when I would change my bias. But we could do a multitude of different things. But I just want to make sure I'm cautious of this, because this could happen as long as this level is not broken. We're still in good favor for bullish bias. So let's go into some US dollar pairs now. First one, Great British Pound, US dollar. I'll go here to the daily time frame so you guys can see where we're at right here. So we had this sideways chop, this sideways consolidation, if you will, until we had a break of this structure over here. And I'll go down to the 4-hour time frame now. And you can see just kind of the market structure that we're moving in. We had this impulse down, we had this bearish correction, and then we had a breakout of this structure right here. We had a breakout here, and then what happened next? After we had this impulse, another correction, impulse, and now we're just getting a longer correction. So that's what I'm forecasting right now in terms of moves. I am forecasting this as a bearish correction. You guys can see we haven't taken out this high right here, which this would invalidate this setup. If we were to, take out this high right here, which was the previous lower high, if we did something like this, that's when market structure could change and continue moving to the upside. But as of right now, we don't have that, and we're still moving within this bearish correction. And so if I turn on this line chart, you can see it a little bit more clearly, just kind of how we're working. I mean, this is basic market structure principles. Lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, forecasting the next lower low. So when you turn it onto a line chart like this, you can kind of see it a little bit more clearly without all the noise. But this is a bearish trend right here, because we're moving within those lower lows, lower highs. And this I'm just taking as a bearish correction. And yes, we did move up a little higher than expected. Last week we were on shorts on Euro USD, and I'll go over that in a minute. We did catch some nice moves on Australian US dollar as well as New Zealand dollar. But on Euro USD, we got stopped out. But ultimately, I'm still forecasting a bearish move down. So if we can get something like this, and then a break of structure, this is where I would look to take short positions right here. Stop loss would be above this previous high. If we do get that, we could continue to, move up a little bit, move sideways, and then break down. An entry would be up here. But ultimately, I'm just waiting for a break of this structure, because this to me is still a bearish correction. In this we have higher time frame confluence with the break of this structure. This is all showing bearish market structure right here, moving in this downtrend. Impulses and corrections, impulses and corrections, and we're just forecasting the next bullish or bearish move to the downside. So I'll go here to Euro USD, very similar in the sense of what's happened. So you guys can see, I'll go to the 6 hour. So you guys can see kind of what we've been doing, same thing as GBP USD. We've just been moving within this downtrend here. We had these bearish corrections, bearish impulses. We're moving down. We had this larger correction here before the strong bearish move down. And so after an impulse like this, strong bearish impulse, we see the bearish correction. And so last week we were in short positions. I believe we had an entry somewhere over here on this break of this trend line. Our entry was there. We got stopped out over here. So a lot of people might think, okay, you got stopped out, price ended up moving higher. We could be, starting to get bullish. And I'm not saying that won't happen, but nothing has been broken. Same thing on DXY. What I mentioned is nothing has been broken in the sense of, in this case, we're in a downtrend. Nothing has been broken. If we were to take out this previous lower high right here, that's when price could start to get bullish and start changing direction. But we still haven't got that. We're still moving within lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs. And we're forecasting the next move down. So just because I got stopped out last week on this trade doesn't mean I'm just going to quit it and I'm saying, no, you know what? I'm not going to take this trade, or I'm going to look for bullish setups now because, price had shot to the upside. Nothing has been broken in terms of bearish market structure here. We just ended up pulling up a little bit more high. So what I would be looking at, and to take that even further, this setup looks right here. This setup looks a lot like this setup right here. You guys can see if I do this replay chart right here, and I go back somewhere over here, this kind of where we're at right here is very similar. If I play this out a bit, you guys can see we could have been forecasting a potential downside move here if we were taking this trade back in this time frame right here. Same thing, we had this bearishness, lower highs, lower lows. You could have taken this same setup right here, and this is kind of where we're at in the sense of current price action. We're continuing to move higher, and so you might say, okay, we might have been breaking the trend, and we might be ready to go bullish. But all you had to do is adapt and move with price action and understand that this is still a bearish correction. You play this out a bit, that would have been our entry right here. And you guys can see we ended up moving a little bit higher before ultimately moving down to the bottom of this structure. And so when I'm looking at this correction right here, it's giving me the same vibes as this over here. We ended up moving a little bit higher. You can see we moved a little bit higher. Same thing over here. But ultimately, the idea was still the same. We were moving within this downtrend. We just had a higher pullback before moving down. And so this is kind of the same vibes I'm getting within this structure right here, to where a lot of people might be getting caught off guard now because everyone was looking for short positions. And what happened? We ended up getting swapped right back up to the upside. So people might be giving up on these short positions or looking to be bullish, but ultimately this is just a classic bearish impulse and correction. We broke out of this larger structure here, very strong bearish impulse or bearish momentum to the downside. So I'm still looking at short positions here. And if we go to the lower time frames, if we could get something like this, I'm on the 2-hour time frame here. If we could get something like this, like a bearish correction, I would look to go short here. Ultimately, if you wanted to wait for a break of this trend line here, that would give ultimate confirmation. But if I could get something like this, I could get a scale and entry. So I could take something like this, short position to the downside, and then I could possibly get another entry if we can do something like this. And then we get a break of this trend line here, I could get another entry here. So I am looking at multiple different entries here. If we do get something like the first one I have shown, that would be a good setup right here, but I'm looking for some sort of bearish correction to form within this bigger correction, because this is the ultimate bigger correction we're in. But if we can get some sort of lower time frame on the 1 hour, maybe even 15-minute, to where we can get something like this, I'd be looking at taking shorts there. Or if we got something like this, that's just one example. Let's say we end up moving down a little bit and we form this double top right here. Maybe we get an entry here. Or if we had moved back up and maybe we form some sort of head and shoulders, maybe we end up moving a little bit further up and we get something like this. That would also be a good indication of going short here, because ultimately my bias is short on the higher time frames, so I want to look for lower time frames confluence to give me some sort of entry here. But ultimately, Euro USD, I'm still bearish going into the week unless this high right here, this previous lower high, gets taken. If this area gets taken, that's when this setup would be invalidated. So we could continue moving up a little bit. Maybe we form some sort of rising wedge here. Maybe we do something like this before moving down. But ultimately, I'm looking at a number of bearish scenarios that could play out but ultimately all of them I'm just looking for some sort of bearish continuation pattern. So I'll move down to the next. So we do have USD JPY here. You can see if I go, let me hide these real quick. We're in all-time highs here. Price has just been skyrocketing. We're in all-time highs, sort of no man's land. And you can see this was our previous resistance level here that we had for quite some time. We had broken that level, and now we had come back to this level here. You can see these daily candles are showing rejection here. We had a rejection at this support, which resistance now turns support. But as we know in this strategy, we don't take support and resistance as entries. We take them as confluence, and we use patterns and higher time frame analysis to give ultimately further confluence on these trades. So I'm not just going to take a long here because we hit this support zone. That's not how I trade. But we do have, if I go to the 4 hour, we do have this descending wedge forming. So when we're approaching key levels like this level here that we're at right now, when we're approaching these levels, we want to see how is price approaching. Are we approaching impulsively or correctively? And in this sense, we're approaching correctively in the sense of a descending channel, which as we know is a reversal pattern or a descending wedge. So we can see we've had a ton of volatility on this pair. I mean, look at these moves that have formed. I mean, this move right here, 428 pip move, insane. Another one that looks about the same length, probably 430 pips. So, I mean, crazy moves here that's been playing out. And then you can see after large, huge moves like this, we typically see low momentum, slow moves as price is digesting. Market participants are digesting these giant moves that happen. So ultimately, I'm forecasting a few different bullish scenarios. One is we get a breakout of this descending channel. Two is we just continue to move sideways a little bit, because after, like I said, after huge moves, price is going to slow down. It's going to get a little choppy, and we could continue to form this base here before moving up. Give price a little bit of time to consolidate before moving up. So I am looking at bullish scenarios, but because of the volatility last week, we might need to wait a little bit in terms of long positions. So it would be nice if we did get a breakout here of this descending channel, but I wouldn't be surprised to see some sort of chop, maybe some sort of inverse head and shoulders come in here, something like this. Maybe we get a double bottom right here, something like that. But I'm ultimately waiting to see if we get a strong base formed here. I'm looking for upside moves as our forecast on DXY and US dollar is bullish. So I am looking at bullish setups here. But ultimately, that's pretty much the top setups I'm looking at going into the week. I think there's about 7 to 8 of them that I'm looking at. And so take with this as you will. I hope you guys are able to learn a little bit about my ideologies and my price action strategy. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. DM me on Instagram at Forex 1%. But looking forward to the week, and hopefully we have another good one.